I want to start off with a quote. I love Martin Luther King Jr. And he says, "Only in the darkness can we see the stars." And isn't it true that when things are darkness, light shines brightest? In my city, Omaha, Nebraska, and in cities across the country, there are parts of our city that are considered the inner city. In inner cities, if we went around the room and asked the question, what do you think about when you think about inner cities? Inner cities are marked by red lines and red dots. And red dots represent lives that have been lost. Red dots represent crime. Red dots represent violence in every city across the country. About 35 years ago, my parents moved our family from the suburbs of Omaha, Nebraska. My dad felt called to the mission work, told God he'll move anywhere except for the inner city. And guess where God put him? In the inner city. Don't tell God what you won't do. And so our family moved into the inner city and experienced everything from the poverty, the fatherlessness, house was shot at, neighbors were murdered. At one point in time, in 2007, the police said that the neighborhood we grew up in was redlined as one of the most violent neighborhoods in all of our city. And living there, having those experiences, my dad started to ask a question. He started to ask the question, what does the kingdom of God look like in a neighborhood? And one of the first things that he thought about, well, the kingdom of God looks like a cleaner neighborhood. And so through the mobilization of churches and volunteers and partners, we started to clean up the neighborhood. And we said the kingdom of God looks like a more connected neighborhood, because in areas of high crime and violence, people aren't connected because people are living in fear. And so we started to throw block parties and started to connect people around food and fun and games. We said, man, what does the kingdom of God look like in a neighborhood? It looks like there's resources and opportunities. And so we started to mobilize resources. In 2009, the police came back after we were living in this neighborhood and working in this neighborhood, and they said this neighborhood that was once one of the worst is now one of the best. We'd love to partner with you to take on more challenging neighborhoods in this city. They asked us, what's your strategy? And up until that point, we didn't have a strategy. We had been living in this neighborhood and in this community for about 20 years, but we didn't really have a strategy. And as we started to look back on what had worked and how we got to where we were, we recognized that there was the power of presence. See, we've seen and we believe that when the people of God who carry the presence of God are present in a community, things change. John 1:14, the Message version, it says, Jesus put on flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. It's not about us getting to God. It's about Jesus coming down to us. And so we saw the power of this strategy of being present in a neighborhood. And we said, if we can do it in one, we can do it in more. And so we identified the 735 most challenging neighborhoods in our community. And we said, we want to see a lighthouse, one lighthouse for every 3 blocks. And so we started that process. And one lighthouse led to 2 lighthouses and led to 3 lighthouses. And over the last 16 years, we've renovated 49 lighthouses and empowered families to live in those lighthouses and to love their neighbors in practical ways. The police tell us that crime is estimated, it goes down 75% where we have an active lighthouse presence in a neighborhood. For us, it's not just about that family living in the neighborhood. It's really about the mobilization and the connection of the local church. Every lighthouse is surrounded with volunteers and church partners that help us serve that community and those neighbors in strategic ways. Ultimately, our goal with our lighthouses in those neighborhoods is to connect the neighbors to resources that can help them, but also ultimately to a local church. I think about Jennifer. She lived next to a lighthouse leader of ours, Bobby Joe. And Bobby Joe and Jennifer over time started to build a relationship, and Joe didn't know it at the time, but Jennifer had been convicted of murder, had served in prison, and was now her next door neighbor. And through relationship, invited Jennifer and her family to a community event. And that community event led to Jennifer coming to church. And I'll never forget talking to Jennifer one day, because as we're talking, Jennifer realized that when she took the lives of her 2 young sisters. She lived 2 doors down from our family 20 years earlier. Bobby Joe invited Jennifer to church. Jennifer gives her life to Christ. Jennifer gets baptized, and over 10 years ago, Jennifer starts walking with God. So ultimately, we know that our presence as followers of Jesus, my dad says it this way, we know what happens when Christians get out of the seats and into the streets. Things change. And so we want to see a movement, a lighthouse movement starting in our city. We've done 49 lighthouses in the last 16 years. Our goal is to do 50 lighthouses in the next 4 years. And to see this model reach into other cities across the country. The word crisis in Japanese has 2 meanings: danger and opportunity. Can I tell you, God's heart is that the church would be in the middle of the crisis of our world. When things are darkest, the church shines brightest, and people are compelled to know why we're doing what we're doing. And so in this partnership, in our relationship, I'll just encourage us to do one of 3 things. Number 1, we can pray. Pray for areas of our city. Pray for areas in Omaha, Nebraska, where there's incredible challenges, and pray that God would break our hearts. Number 2, we can learn. All of us can engage in this process. That's what we're doing today. We are learning. We're hearing about some of the needs and challenges and opportunities where we can get in the game. And then we can invest. We can use the resources God's given us to impact the world around us. I know this: the capacity within the local church is greater than the challenges in our community. And I can't wait until our world feels and sees and experiences that along with us. Thank you.